Can you tell me if there's something that you're not good at, or maybe something that you're scared of?
Something I'm scared of?
What? Yeah, right. Elle's not scared of anything.
Well, I suppose monsters.
Me too. I am too.
Dummy, Elle's not the same as you.
There are many types of monsters in this world. Monsters who will not show themselves and who cause trouble. Monsters who abduct children. Monsters who devour dreams. Monsters who suck blood. And monsters who always tell lies. Lying monsters are a real nuisance. They are much more cunning than other monsters.
They pose as humans, even though they have no understanding of the human heart. They eat, even though they've never experienced hunger. They study, even though they have no interest in academics. They seek friendship, even though they do not know how to love. If I were to encounter such a monster, I would likely be eaten by it. Because in truth, I am that monster.
Can I ask you a personal question? What mask do you wear? No, really. Take a moment and think about it. Are you someone who appears caring and selfless, while a vampire beneath the surface sucks the life out of others? Do you present yourself as composed and rational, only to lose control in moments of stress like a werewolf? Maybe your mask is invisibility, a ghost that goes unseen, hiding insecurities or desires you fear are going to overwhelm you. The masks we wear aren't just hollow faces we show the world, they house insatiable monsters. Our flaws, fears, and desires lurking just beneath the surface. These monsters aren't separate from the mask, they are born from it. They are not inherently evil or vicious. They're us. Just the parts we don't like. Maybe you are kind and caring, but have a bit of an anger problem. Maybe you are loving and thoughtful, but a tiny bit overbearing. Or maybe you are confident and cool, but just have a hard time giving up control. That surface isn't fake, and the depth isn't the only truth. We don these masks to get what we think we need. Connection, love, validation. But the monster in the depth always lurks. The anger chips away at the kindness, the overbearing nature twists the love, and the control reveals your insecurities. You never master the mask, you just wear it. You never defeat the monster, instead you pick and choose when to let it out. The question is not whether you have a monster, it's whether you know how to live with it. Because your agency, your ability to choose how you wear the mask and manage the monster inside, that's what makes the difference between whether it serves you or devours you and those around you. So, what are you good at? What are your flaws? Most importantly, what part of yourself do you need to keep under control the most? Me? Well, my name's Beef and I'm a leprechaun. My mask is one of approachability. It invites people to open up, to feel safe, and to share their deepest secrets. But within that mask, there's a monster with a sharp wit who's quick to judge and is always ready to cut people down without hesitation. And if I'm being honest, while I like meeting people and my mask allows me the opportunity to see them for who they truly are, I don't always want to engage. My monster wants to push people away and insult their problems. But that's where the hard work comes in. I bite my tongue, I listen, I force myself to care, not because I want to, but because I know what happens if I don't. I lose out on the very thing I put the mask on for in the first place. Connection. The monster isn't some external force, it's me. It's the unintended consequences of wearing the mask I chose. The qualities that make the mask effective, like approachability or charisma, also give rise to flaws and impulses that can twist those traits if left unchecked. The goal isn't to get rid of your monster. That's impossible. It's about learning how to wield it alongside the mask. When the monster starts using the mask as a cover for its own desires, that's when the real danger begins. Masks, monsters, if this all sounds confusing, let me simplify. You exist. As a byproduct of your existence, you have goals or things you want to achieve. To reach those goals, you craft a public persona, the mask. The monster is the collection of unintended downsides tied to that mask. Since we choose how we act in public, we choose the mask we wear. We do not choose the monster inside. The only thing we control is whether or not the monster acts, whether it eats or devours. Each time the monster eats, you risk corrupting your mask and making it lose its purpose. For example, if I let the leprechaun act with impunity by letting people in and immediately cutting them down, no one would ever want to connect with me, and I wouldn't blame them. My mask loses its purpose, and now I'm just a drunk Irish short guy in a bar telling people about gold and calling them idiots. But if I choose when to let the monster out, and he convinces a greedy guy to chase the end of a rainbow, I can maybe get someone to buy my next round. Your monster isn't inherently bad. It's dangerous, sure, but it's also you. It takes vigilance, self-awareness, and control to utilize it in a way that serves you rather than itself. The stakes can be as small as a ruined connection or as massive as catastrophic consequences for yourself and others. Mastering the balance isn't just about control. It's about staying true to your purpose. I hope that clears things up. This was more for me than you guys. Y'all are wicked smart, and I'm just kind of trying to follow my own metaphor. It's like really dense, and trust me, I came back to this a lot. Writing this, yeah, it was a lot. Sorry. Anyways, next section. Monsters in Death Note may seem like two completely different things, but they're not. Every character in Death Note wears a mask while their respective monsters use those masks to battle for dominance. That's what makes it one of the most exciting and suspenseful pieces of media ever made. Not just Death Note, you'll notice a form of this dynamic in every well-written suspense piece. Maybe you've seen all the theories, essays, and fanfics dissecting morality, justice, and godhood. I mean, I know I have, but I'm not here to talk about morality. For the purposes of this essay, I don't care about what Light did. I do not care about what L did. I'm here to talk about the masks we wear and the monsters inside of them. I don't think L's monologue at the beginning of this video was just a clever reference to the show Monster, or an interesting way to introduce Nier and Mello. I believe that monologue acts as the driving force behind every character interaction in the show. We could talk about every character, their masks and monsters, but Misa's love, masking obsession, or Matsuda's duty, masking insecurity, are not why you are here. You're here for the big boys, the powerhouses, the dynamic that runs the show. You are here for the no-holds-barred death match between Light Yagami's monster of ego versus L's monster of apathetic detachment. And if you're still here, first, thank you. But second,
let's get ready to rumble!
for Light and L, their masks are the driving force of the show's plot. They both wear the same mask of righteousness, but hide different monsters. Light hides his monster of control, ego, and his own god complex, while L hides his apathetic detachment, need to be correct, and his own ego. Both are two sides of the same coin, but their agency and how they wield their monsters are night and day. Behind every decision that Light makes, his ego takes the lead. In contrast, L's agency picks and chooses when and how to act. He uses that detachment to reveal only what is necessary to achieve his goals. His name, his face, even his emotions are pointed tools used to attack whatever the current goal is. Ironically, it's L's detachment and cold objectivity. You could also say trying to connect / think out loud, to set the first domino for his demise in motion. His refusal to engage emotionally isolates him. This forces him into risky moves like showing his face to Light or telling everyone his plan to test the 14-day rule. These choices ultimately expose him to forces beyond his control, like Rem, the literal deus ex machina who seals his fate. The suspense in Death Note isn't about morality or justice. Think of those things like paint and decor. The suspense comes from these two monsters, Light and L, hell-bent on devouring each other. One must consume the other. Their struggle is a perfect depiction of what happens when the monster within the mask is either controlled consciously or is allowed to act with impunity. In the case of Light Yagami, we could say that Death Note itself, or rather his first choice to use it, gave his monster an endless source of food. 2 weeks after his first kill, when Light shows Ryuk the Death Note, he isn't just proud, he's defiant, almost elated. He declares his goal to the audience.
I will become the god of this new world.
At this moment, he fully embraces the mask of righteousness. After all, he's killing criminals. People already judged by their peers and punished by the system, but Light seeks to overwrite that justice with his own divine hand. This could be seen as the moment Light surrenders to his monster, allowing his agency to align with impulses most people try to suppress. However, it's reductive and incredibly boring to say his descent was inevitable from the start, so for the purposes of exploring the thesis, let's break his journey down further. Through his handling of Lindell Taylor, we see what a monster unchecked looks like, and when he deals with Naomi Pember, it terrifyingly shows how a controlled monster operates seamlessly through its mask. During the second episode of the series, we're given a glimpse, or rather, a promise, of what this show is about. Light Yagami is an unassuming, above-average high schooler murdering people he deems evil, criminals. He starts with the lowest of the low. Meanwhile, the world takes notice. Governments panic as crime rates plummet and prison populations mysteriously fall. Amid this chaos, a man with a laptop appears who has a plan in hand to catch this killer. While Light and Ryuk are in his room watching the news and killing criminals, typical high school senior shenanigans, a special worldwide broadcast interrupts them. On screen appears Lindell Taylor, a man claiming to represent law enforcement. Light is thrilled. He's finally being seen, acknowledged, called out. But then...
However, what you're doing right now is evil.
Fun fact about monsters, they hate being called out. Light's ego spirals. His god complex, carefully fed and nurtured by his mask, is threatened. Evil? No. Light is righteous. Light is good. Light is God. And when God is threatened, there's only one answer. Divine retribution. Yep, that's right. Faced with his first moral challenge, Light lets his mask's darker impulses take over, but Light's triumph is short-lived. The screen changes to reveal the letter L. Not the kind that Light just took, but the name of the world's greatest detective, and also the second and third greatest detective. L directly challenges Light, explaining how he orchestrated Taylor's trap, and revealing how the broadcast was only in the Kanto region of Japan. For the first time, Light is shaken, not just by the fact that L outmaneuvered him, but by how exposed he was. In this moment, Light learns a valuable lesson. To achieve his goal, his monster alone won't cut it. He needs his mask, and he needs to wield it better. After being challenged on live television, Light doesn't accept defeat. He adapts. L enlists the FBI to investigate Kira, assigning agents to surveil families connected to the Japanese police force. Among them is Ray Pember, tasked with tailing the Yagami and Aizawa families. Ryuk informs Light of this surveillance, and Light, anticipating such a move, sets a trap. Using the Death Note in a staged buzzjacking, Light forces Ray to reveal his name, sealing his fate, and inadvertently causing the deaths of every FBI agent involved in the case. Ray's actions are often criticized as careless, but that judgment overlooks the complexity of his situation. In the busjacking orchestrated by Light, Ray's mask of authority and instincts as a seasoned agent drive him to intervene. He overhears someone, regardless of who it is, claiming they will play hero, and acting on logic and training makes a calculated decision to reveal himself. If Light had been a typical high schooler, Ray's actions would have been effective. Instead, Light's monster exploits Ray's trust in his role, turning it into a fatal flaw. It's a chilling reminder of how masks, which are meant to protect or empower us, can be weaponized by others against us. Ray's death leaves behind Naomi, his fiancée, who immediately steps into the fray. The audience knows she used to be a detective who once worked alongside L. Naomi had set her career aside to start a family at Ray's insistence. With nothing left to lose, she resolves to bring her theory straight to L. By chance, Light encounters Naomi at the police station. He overhears her pleading to meet with L, and his interest is piqued. Naomi, driven by her mask of determination and resolve, entertains Light for a moment. Sensing an opportunity, Light presents himself as exactly who he is, the police chief's son, and offers to escort her to the task force headquarters. Their interaction becomes a masterclass in manipulation as Light's monster dismantles Naomi's defenses piece by piece. Naomi, who's wary of Kira's abilities, initially gives a fake name, a precursor to L's own caution later in the series and a demonstration of Naomi's own deductive capabilities. When Light's first attempt to use the Death Note fails on her, he recalibrates, exploiting her trust and need for validation. He convinces her of his authenticity and claims to be a task force agent. Naomi's monster, a desperate need to help, drives her to lower her guard, reveal her name, and get eaten by Light. Her death is much more than a plot point. It is a testament to Light's mastery of his mask and monster. He does not overpower Naomi. He exploits her humanity, turning her best traits into vulnerabilities. It's a chilling demonstration of how trust can be and will be weaponized by predators. What makes this episode so impactful is its grounded realism. Light's manipulation mirrors real-life predators who use charm, authority, and empathy to disarm their victims. Figures like Bundy or Dahmer similarly wielded their masks to devastating effect. Much like Light, their actions aren't supernatural. They are terrifyingly human. Naomi's death shows the grim reality of what monsters in action look like. Light used her mask and fed her monster just enough to placate it, and then proceeded to devour her once its defenses were down. The horror isn't loud or over-the-top violent. It's the quiet sways of manipulation. It's not the Death Note or the Shinigamis that create fear, but rather the young adult who charms, lies, and disarms you, because the wolf in sheep's clothing is scarier than the known beast outside the fence. It reminds me of an analogy I heard as a kid. In life, there are three kinds of people: sheep, wolves, who eat the sheep, and sheepdogs, who have the same teeth as wolves, but use them to protect the flock. Generally, I'm not a fan of analogies that reduce people to oversimplified categories, but the idea that sheepdogs share the teeth of wolves always resonated with me. El Lalette, aka El, the world's first, second, and third best detective, is a sheepdog. He embodies ideals similar to Light's and wields a comparable monster, but the way he uses it couldn't be more different. Personally, I don't think El would have cared about the Kira case if it hadn't intrigued him. Like, El's curiosity, detachment, and ego are his monsters at work. What separates the sheepdog from the wolf, however, is agency. El uses his monster to confront the wolf, directing those impulses towards a higher goal. With Ray and Naomi, we saw what a wolf can do in a henhouse. With El, we see what happens when a sheepdog sets its sights on a wolf. From the moment he sets the trap in episode 2, El makes one thing abundantly clear. Kira, and by extension Light, is his bitch. While the trap taught Light the importance of control, it gave El an even more valuable insight. Kira's greatest flaw is his ego, and egos are easy to exploit. In that single moment, El asserted dominance over Light, flipping the dynamic from predator and prey to a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where Light is perpetually on the defensive. Now, after bitching Light, El secures authorization to involve the FBI, tasking them with monitoring potential suspects. The move ultimately triggers the death of all the agents, including Ray Pember, and it's here that El's monster, his detached apathy, emerges. His actions are strategically sound, but his failure to disclose his suspicion erodes trust within the task force. After all, accusing your coworkers and their family of suspicion while the main evidence is basically, the way your son eats potato chips, kinda sus, doesn't inspire confidence. To keep the investigation alive, El leans into his mask, carefully managing what he reveals to maintain the team's cooperation. This early breach of trust forces El to take 2 calculated risks, revealing his face and extending his thought process to the task force. These moves, while uncharacteristic, are necessary to sustain the investigation. They reflect El's agency, ego-driven but still serving a larger purpose. If El were like Light, the game would have ended the moment he locked up Light. But El's monster was always controlled, always subordinate to his goal. His curiosity and detachment were tools, not masters. What made El dangerous wasn't just that he shared traits with the wolf, it was that he understood it. He had the teeth to match and the patience to wait. Ultimately, it was El's own monster that led to his downfall. His ego, the same trait that he could exploit in Kira, was also his biggest flaw. It made him overconfident. He led too boldly with Lindell Taylor, revealed too much when he showed his face, and underestimated forces beyond his control. By revealing his plan to test the 14-day rule, El inadvertently gave Light the leverage to manipulate Rem into sacrificing herself for Misa. This intervention underscores how even the most controlled masks and monsters can fall victim to unforeseen circumstances. Even in death, El's mask and monster define him. The sheepdog's greatest strength, its understanding of the wolf, was also its undoing, as the wolf turned its cunning into a weapon against him. For El, the surveillance and wiretapping of families connected to the Japanese police force yield no results. He publicly announces to the task force that that specific operation was ending, but privately, he crafts a daring new plan to pressure the main suspect. At the university entrance ceremony, El takes the bold step of introducing himself to Light as El. This move is as much about destabilizing Light as it is about confirming his own suspicions. El praises Light's sense of justice and his interest in the Kira case, carefully watching for any cracks in Light's composure. The introduction is also a challenge, a way for El to gauge how the monster behind Light's mask handles direct confrontation. This moment underscores the stark imbalance of stakes in their battle. For El, it's about truth. For Light, it's survival. Every interaction with El is a life or death situation. If he falters, if his mask slips for even a second, his monster will be exposed and his entire world will collapse. For El, the stakes are fundamentally different. While he would prefer to win and survive, his ultimate goal is the truth. Even if he dies in the process, unmasking Kira would still constitute a victory in his eyes. El's detachment from self-preservation allows him to act with a freedom that Light can't afford, turning the encounter into a psychological minefield for his opponent. After their introduction, El escalates the tension by inviting Light to a game of tennis. What appears to be a friendly match is, in reality, an intricate dance of strategy and observation. For Light, every decision carries a potential consequence. Should he win, lose, hold back? Each option risks exposing either his intelligence or his monstrous ego. El, meanwhile, uses the match as an opportunity to study Light's monster, lurking just beneath the surface of his carefully maintained mask. This pattern continues at the cafe, where El ups the ante by presenting Light with 3 messages, supposedly written by Kira's victims. When Light identifies the messages are out of order and deduces the correct sequence, L introduces a false fourth message to observe Light's reaction. Light hesitates for a fraction of a second before accepting the false premise, knowing that challenging it would only raise suspicions. L's commentary, mocking Light for assuming there were only 3 messages, serves as both a taunt and a reminder of the constant danger Light is in. For L, the game is about exposing the truth, not survival. For Light, survival is the game. This fundamental difference defines their conflict. L's monster, detached, objective, and methodical, thrives on pressure, using observation and precision to chip away at Light's mask. Light's monster, ego-driven and fueled by a god complex, struggles to navigate these relentless traps without revealing itself. Every move is a calculated risk for Light, while for L, it's just to test the probabilities. In this dynamic, the mask becomes both a weapon and a liability. The pressure L applies isn't just about uncovering Kira, it's about forcing Light to betray his monster, knowing that no mask can hold up indefinitely under scrutiny. During the second arc of the series, Light is actively involved with the Kira case, while also being its main suspect. In a bold gamble orchestrated by his monster, Light devises a convoluted plan. He gives up ownership of the Death Note, erasing his memories of it, and then the Death Note lands in the hands of the Yotsuba group, who continue Kira's killings. This way, Light and Misa are absolved of any direct connection to the murders. What's fascinating here is that Light's monster gambles. It relinquishes control entirely, trusting that it will regain dominance when the time comes. Monsters thrive on aligning your agency with their desires, manipulating you towards self-destruction if necessary. This gamble is no exception. Light's plan culminates with him voluntarily imprisoning himself, nearly getting filicided in the process. Side note, Light's dad is genuinely cooler than Light in every conceivable way. Someone remind me to make a video about character foils because Soichiro Yagami is a masterpiece of a character. Comment below if you're interested. Light's monster retreats as he gives up the Death Note and its memories. What emerges is almost a different person. Almost. This version of Light isn't free from his monster. Rather, his agency is no longer under its sway. Without the monster's influence, Light's brilliance and sense of justice shine through. He becomes an incredibly useful ally to L, matching his intellect and determination to catch Kira. His mask of righteousness fits seamlessly into societal expectations, creating a version of Light that's genuinely compelling. However, the monster never truly disappears. It's caged, sure, but not killed. Light is still arrogant, evident in his sharp verbal sparring with L. Their back and forth brims with backhanded compliments and subtle accusations, a verbal chess game that flies over everyone else's heads. Still, Light questions Kira's ethics and even fears the idea that he could be capable of such actions. It's a tantalizing glimpse of what Light could have been. Almost Life of Life-esque if you turn your head and squint. But then, as expected in Death Note, the calm shatters. The Death Note resurfaces. Both L and Light touch it, triggering a cascade of chaos. L screams, terrified at the sight of a Shinigami. Light, however, screams for a very different reason. His innocence dies as his memories flood back, or maybe he's just in pain. Regaining memories of your worst actions can't be pleasant. But even with this moment of clarity, Light's path is set in stone. Let's take a step back. That scrap of paper that was in Light's watch's hidden compartment, did he forget that was there? The compartment itself, not the piece of paper. Did he just never know that about his watch after he lost his memories? Also, who even owns a watch with a secret compartment without anyone questioning it? The fact that nobody noticed or cared remains hilariously convenient to me, but I digress. The key takeaway here isn't the logistics of the watch or the mechanics of memory transfer. It's the cautionary tale embedded in Light's arc. The story shows us what Light could have been without his monster's dominance. Memory lost Light is a person of intellect and potential, uncorrupted by his worst impulses. But those impulses were always there. The Death Note didn't create Light's monster, it simply gave it a stage to shine on. The tragedy lies in the choices. Many argue that absolute power corrupts absolutely, but that interpretation misses the mark here. Light, like all of us, has ego, desire, and flaws. His monster is an extension of himself, as is his mask. But the deepest layer, his agency, defines who he is. Light chose his path. And once those impulses took root, the Light who questioned Kira's ethics, who collaborated earnestly with L, was forever lost. The monster's gamble succeeded. Now, the Kira task force has the Death Note, a Shinigami to consult, and new rules added by Light to further muddy the waters. It's a chilling reminder that the monster, once unleashed, always plans for the long game. Memory Lost Light shows us the person Light could have been. A person who glimpsed freedom from his monster, but was ultimately consumed by it. The tragedy isn't just in what he became, but in the fleeting moment of what he could have been. If you made it this far, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate your time. Up to now, we followed Death Note chronologically, dissecting its masks and monsters along the way. Where we are headed next is a point of contention among fans. Some stop watching after L's death, feeling the show loses its spark. Others power through, embracing Nier and Mello as worthy successors. No matter where you stand, L's death is pivotal. A masterful, tragic culmination of his battle with Kira. After presenting the task force with his plan to test the 14-day rule, L senses something foreboding. Call it intuition, foresight, or simply the weight of his war against Kira. His mask, sharp and analytical, recognizes the stakes. Yet his monster, detached and methodical, still sees a path to victory. The tragedy of L's death lies in this delicate balance. His mask and monster work in harmony, but even harmony can't account for the unknown. A literal god of death intervening to protect Misa. On his final day, L takes a calculated gamble. He leans into Light's ego and god complex, placating the monster behind Light's mask. But monsters like Light's thrive on being placated, twisting it into some sense of justification. L's decision isn't mere arrogance, it's a reflection of his monster. The same risk-taking intellect that taunted Kira with the 5% probability back in episode 9 is still here. It's not hubris, it's temperance. L believed his methodical approach could outlast and outwit the wolf, but he underestimated the chaos a god of death could unleash. The irony of L's downfall is that the methodology that brought him so close to unmasking Kira also led to his undoing. L's reliance on logic and deduction was no match for supernatural forces. How could anyone anticipate that Rem would sacrifice herself for Misa? This isn't to absolve L of blame. His tendency to control the narrative, to reveal his methodology to Light early on, gave his opponent's monster opportunities to exploit. Still, let's be real. Light got lucky, time and time again. His monster thrived not on brilliance alone, but on chance, manipulation, and external forces tipping the scales. L fought the wolf and nearly won, but his temperance, his faith in order and logic, was no match for the chaotic intervention of a god. L's death is heartbreaking because it feels both inevitable and avoidable at the same time. His monster didn't betray him, but his commitment to control and temperance limited his adaptability. The sheepdog fell not because the wolf was stronger, but because the sheepdog couldn't see the divine hand dictating the game. The battle between monsters isn't just a trope, it's a lens through which to view history and conflict. Think Alma Coin and President Snow, Hitler and Stalin, Light and L. One monster must devour the other, and both wear masks to justify their actions. Perhaps you think history is written by the victors. Morality is subjective, and Nier and Mello never surpassed L. They just got lucky. I disagree. Nier and Mello represent L's monster untempered. They discarded his need for balance and, in doing so, capitalized on Light's mistakes. They were the Stalin to Light's Hitler, wielding their monstrosity without the constraints of L's calculated control. L had to placate the task force, work within societal norms, and manage the optics of his methods. Nier and Mello faced no such restraints. Their methods, unfair as they may seem, worked. Just as Light's monster thrived when it acted without care, so too did L's successors when they leaned fully into their monstrous side. The difference? They were just on L's side, and Light had to practice the temperance L had to. He couldn't kill his sister, his father took the deal instead of Matsuda. The irony of that is poetic, by the way. But Light, who acted without restraint, was ultimately undone by the very restraint he once capitalized on. Light didn't lose because Nier outsmarted him, he lost because Mikami fumbled the plan. Just as Light didn't win against L, Rem did. Luck played a role in both outcomes. Cornered and desperate, Light's mask shatters. He just laughed, revealed himself as Kira, and claimed victory. Just for nothing to happen. In turn, Mikami abandons him, declaring Light no god. When he says no one could do this except him, Nier cuts through his delusions, calling him a murderer. Matsuda, the naive, underestimated one, who Light's father probably liked more, shoots him when Light pulls out a piece of the Death Note. Light's mask is gone, and his monster is laid bare, wounded, crying, and pleading for his life. Light becomes everything he denied being. Weak, human, and utterly pathetic. He begs Ryuk to save him, to kill everyone else. Ryuk, ever detached, appeases him by writing Light's name in the Death Note. In those final 40 seconds, we see Light for what he truly is. A fucking bitch, begging for mercy he would never have granted others. It's a triumphant ending, not because Light loses, but because his monster is finally defeated. He dies, not as a god, but as the flawed human he always was. If I sound harsh, it's because Light deserves it. If you proclaim yourself a god, kill thousands for your ego, and then declare yourself the sole arbiter of justice in the world, don't cry like a fucking bitch when some lowly godslayer shows up and shoots you. Like, skill issue king, just play better. I started this essay with L's speech because it sparked a single question. What monster are you? It's a question that's lingered with me for years. Sure, I've shared my answer, but now I want to know yours. Monsters are real, but they don't live under your bed. They live behind your mask. No, you're not Bundy or some irredeemable stain on humanity, but if you can't be honest with yourself, if you can't admit there's a part of you capable of self-destruction, then maybe you are closer to Light Yagami than you'd like to admit. Monsters aren't inherently evil. They're not something to fear. They're cowards, bound to the mask we wear. But here's the thing. The mask will always betray the monster, so it doesn't make sense to deny it. Unpacking the nuance of Death Note, its masks, its monsters, it wasn't easy. And I'm sure there's more to say and there's something I missed. But if you walk away with 3 things, I'll consider this a win. 1, monsters are real. They exist in all of us, our desires, fears, and instincts, constantly working to serve our egos. 2, you can't rid yourself of your monster, but you can learn to channel it to ensure it serves you rather than the other way around. 3, awareness is key. Mastering the balance between mask and monster isn't easy, but it's worth it. And finally, Light Yagami is a fucking bitch. Yeah, I know I said 3 takeaways, but this one couldn't be overstated. Light Yagami's a fucking bitch, okay? I said it, alright? Get mad, whatever. Media is more than a mirror. It reflects, sure, but it also critiques and calls us to action. Death Note is a mirror that doesn't flinch. It goes over the top to show us what lies beneath our masks. The persistent question of why defines its brilliance. Why didn't Death Note end with L's death? Why didn't Light create his perfect world? That answer is up to you, but for me, the biggest clue lies in L's monologue. You could say it critiques Japan's prison system or it explores different themes of justice, and you'd be right. But for me, the takeaway is simple. Monsters aren't bad. They're human. They're you. They're me. The difference lies in what we do with them. Hey guys, it's me, a beef sauce. I don't know why the fuck I'm talking like that. Hi. So this started on January 21st, and I'm finishing this recording on January 31st. And let me tell you something. It was not easy at all. It was actually really, really hard to write this. Even now that I'm done recording, I feel like I missed so much. I wanted to dissect and talk more, but it's like the more I talk, the more, not the more work I would make for myself, but it's like, I was trying to condense it, but also keep it like unpacked, you know what I mean? And that just, it's a really hard thing, but I'm still kind of trying to find my footing here. But I do hope you like this. If I were to do it differently, I think I would try to explore how each of these characters, monsters, actually interact. And like, while it's clear what it means, I kind of wanted to maybe go a little bit further into like that concept of like, in history, we need one monster to devour another, just because I there wasn't really a good way for me to present that within the narrative, especially in like historical senses, because it's like people could take that to mean like, oh, so they're the same. It's like, no, it's just, if it's like in war, right? If your opponent's willing to fucking sacrifice children and kill all of your kids, I'm not saying that you have to be willing to kill their kids, but it's like, you need to have a leader who's willing to go as low as them, which isn't right. I'm not here to talk about the morals of it. I'm just kind of talking about the reality of the situation. It's like crazy, to be honest with you, but like, it just is. That's why I said like Alma Coin and President Snow. Alma Coin was willing to do a Hunger Games after the fact because she was President Snow. Like, they were the same person. Katniss clearly saw that and then killed her with President Snow, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to do. After you win the war, you kill the monster that you elected to lead you for the last however long. But either way, I'm like kind of just chatting and going through this. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I really would like for you to like and subscribe. I'm doing a wheel spin, but I have a couple more video essays like geared up and interested. They should be done much faster. I say that, but like this one was just hard because the metaphor was really dense and I had to unpack a lot of shit and like do a lot of fucking thinking. Like I wrote it, then rewrote it, then rewrote it, then rewrote it. You know what I mean? Like I had to rewrite it like 5 separate times, but not important. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been me, Beef Sauce, and yeah, I hope you like this and check out the short. I made a short. I hope you like it. Bye.